And welcome to the Daily Space Weather. Looking at Sunspot 2749 in the SDO's colorized magnetogram. It has indeed emerged as Cycle 24 activity. You see that green field that's leading? That's the North Pole oriented magnetic field there. So it's official. It's a Cycle 24 sunspot. Pretty far off the equator for a Cycle 24 sunspot. Let's look at it in 304 angstroms, our local yellow dwarf. Here's a close-up of that Sunspot 2749. We see lots of filament activity. And yesterday we saw our first B-class X-ray flare. The first B-class flare since July 7th. Anyway, lots of filament activity going on all around the limbs. And solar activity has basically ticked up. We're looking at 8 hours and 45 minutes here, 304 angstroms. Let's look at more stuff. Here's the X-ray imager. And you can see there are some X-rays coming out of that sunspot. Let's zoom way in. Perfect view of that there. We'll let that play through before we look at some more data. Now, yesterday we didn't make a censored versus sinkhole video, and that's because we were busy producing a video in the afternoon and there was all kinds of stuff going on. Let's move on to the real-time solar wind. By the way, this video is going to be a little lengthy because we've got a lot of stuff to cover here, so let's get through it. And there's the real-time solar wind. We see the phi angle at 135 degrees. Solar wind density very low, a very diffuse solar wind here at about 1.4 protons per cubic centimeter there. Solar wind remains slightly elevated here at around 500 kilometers per second, 490 kilometers per second. And we're going to look at more data, but first let's talk about funding the channel. Please do so via Patreon. You will get updates first. We will send you alerts before anybody else in the world receives them. You will receive notifications about our videos even if YouTube doesn't send them to you. This is the primary source of funding for the channel, is Patreon, as this channel is monetized for the benefit of YouTube and Google, not for us, as YouTube/Google pays us precisely nothing to make these videos. 10.7 centimeter radial flux up to 69. I've drawn in this orange line here representing 70 solar flux units. No surprise that you see an increase in the 10.7 centimeter radial flux, a measure of the outer corona's radio emissions. No surprise that we see an increase there as we see a sunspot. 10.7 centimeter radial flux tends to follow sunspot number pretty proportionally. And we see the GOES magnetometer leveling out here, although we're going to see continued spikiness in this. There will be a little stability induced by that sunspot. So let's look at the GONG data. The GONG 2, that is. Here's the top view ecliptic plane field plot. And we can see a little bit of a tug of war going on here in the local heliospheric current sheet environment. As you can see, it's changing polarity here. And that has to do with the sunspot. And this is going to continue. We're going to stay in the North Pole oriented portion here for a while. And yeah, that sunspot is going to be pulling the B field down. In fact, let's take a look at it. So here's the line of sight ecliptic plane field plot. And the blue line there represents the net B field. And I don't know, it looks kind of odd right now. Okay, you can finally see it coming into frame there at the end. You can see it's pulling the B field way down toward the sunspot. And so the current sheet should remain North Pole oriented. This green area here, this North Pole polarity, should remain in place for days. Keep in mind, magnetic environments can change with absolutely no warning. We don't like to report on the fact that magnetic environments can change without any warning, but we'd rather know than not know. And there's the GOES X-ray flux graphs. You can see that B-class flare coming in yesterday. A couple of them there. It looks like 4 B-class flares happened. And so the possibility of more flares coming in is still there as long as that sunspot's there. Let's look at cosmic rays as we haven't for a couple of days here. First, we'll look at Apatity. And there's the Apatity neutron monitor. There's Barentsburg. Looks like a little missing data there. Here's Athens. Fairly high levels there with a little bit of data loss around the 20th. Normally we look at Mexico City, but it looks like that site is down right now, so let's head to Moscow. There's the Moscow neutron monitor. See some pretty wild swings recently happening and pretty high overall levels there at Moscow. And finally, we'll look at Oulu, Finland. There's the Oulu monitor. Here's DOMC Antarctica. And there's DOMC Antarctica. We did see a big spike at DOMB Antarctica on the 29th. KP index, otherwise known as the planetary K index, dropped all the way from 3 to 0. So that's the cosmic ray human health alert possibilities coming up now, folks, with a very weak magnetosphere. Let's do an earthquake rundown. Past 24 hours, 4+ magnitude quakes. We'll read them all. Coming in at just about 24 hours ago, we see an Aleutian Islands quake there off of the coast of Alaska at a 4.2 magnitude. Next on the list, Argentina, seeing a 4.5 magnitude quake. Here's a 4.2 at Mexico. Next is a 4.5 at Indonesia. This one taking place at 11:42 UTC. Here's another Argentinian quake. This one at depth heads up western South America for a larger quake. We've been warning about it for months, and the 7+ magnitude earthquake drought continues. Earthquake droughts end in earthquakes, folks. I don't know if you were aware. And here's one south of Australia, near Macquarie Island, out in the middle of nowhere, to say the least. Next, we see a 5.2 in the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. This one taking place at 22:25 UTC, an hour and a half before midnight. Next, we see a 4.8 at Japan, 4.3 at Afghanistan. That one's at depth. Please leave a comment if you're viewing from the Middle East. Please leave a comment if you're from Middle Eastern descent, like my best friend Sam. Shout out, Dr. Afif. And lastly, we see a 4.7 in Chile. This one coming in just about 2 hours ago. From the time the show was done, while we were doing show prep and listening to a Peter Schiff podcast, I did want to note something on the pressure map, that the entire U.S. is in an anticyclone. You can see there's a clockwise rotation right here over the southern tip of Lake Michigan. And let's zoom out and play the pressure map. Something went wrong. All right, there we go. And there's the current pressure environment. I apologize. There was an anticyclonic system over the U.S. When you see a clockwise rotation in the northern hemisphere, that's typically an anticyclone. It's associated with high pressure, lots of protons, and indeed high conductivity. Denser air, folks, denser air. Let's play the pressure maps one day in advance here. Looks like another anticyclone approaching the west coast. Actually, it's stalling in the northern Pacific, and it's going to deflect that low pressure system up into northern Canada. Anyway, there's the pressure maps. Let's move on. Were you aware of early warning signals heralding the collapse of Krakatoa? Here's a great image of what the summit used to look like. They drew in an outline there of where the summit used to be. And guess what? New real estate got created. All of this volcanic ash is seen in the ocean here. This one, let's see, 2 weeks after the 2 weeks after the flank collapsed. Anyway, there was a seismic signal preceding the collapse of that flank. Links to the article below the video. Please click on those after you click on our smAsho links. Enrich your mind. Let's do a volcano rundown as we see an uptick. The KP index goes down and the KP index comes down and volcanic ash goes up. That's the way it works, folks. At least it certainly seems like it. Stromboli back to erupting, explosive activity. They've got Shivaluch. They got a movie of Shivaluch in here. Shout out volcanodiscovery.com. Well done. Anyway, we've got Stromboli back on the list. Etna, weak ongoing ash emissions there. Shivaluch, let's play a clip. Here's Shivaluch exploding. Wait for it. Kaboom! Looks like a windy day up on Shivaluch. Anyway, that explosive eruption produced a 30,000-foot ash plume. Mount Abico, still on the list. Flight level 14,000 there. Mount Aso, 5,000-foot plume there. Ravenador exploding, 15,000-foot plume there. Sabancaya, perhaps unable to be seen in satellite images, I'm sure. Copihu, still on the list, unable to detect. And Nevados de Chilean, producing sporadic puffs. Please do not do the Fosbury flop over Nevados de Chilean, nor a back handspring. Next, we'll do magnetosphere movies. We see pretty weak solar activity here, so we're not expecting too much. It looked like smooth sailing on the show prep. So here's the velocity. We'll also look at density and pressure. No apparent anomalies going on today. Let's zoom out. There we go. By the way, we've got the largest species of owl in the backyard, the great horned owl. They usually show up right around Halloween. Perfect timing for your Halloween soundtracks. Anyway, we see that very low density solar wind there, and we see a very low magnetohydrodynamic pressure in the earthly system. Stay tuned as this 4 hours of data gets compiled, and we'll move on to ground geospace magnetic perturbations in just a moment. Also part of the space weather modeling framework. Shout out University of Michigan. And here's the delta B. That's the geospace delta B, ground magnetic perturbations. Changes in the Earth's B field. We showed you the sun's B field on the Gong 2 image. Here's the Earth's B field perturbations. This is measured in nanotesla, folks. And we see the main perturbations coming in at the net of the North Poles there, which is kind of off the east coast of Greenland, as we've got 2 North Poles and a South Pole that's creeping into the southern Indian Ocean. There's the GOES electron flux. And we saw a precipitous dip just after this coronal mass ejection hit, which, by the way, we cover these things like days in advance to the point where people don't know what we're talking about, which is why you should subscribe to the videos, as you will see things nobody else in the world knows and nobody else in the world covers. Not on YouTube, not on the mainstream news, not any place besides on this YouTube channel. Here are the relativistic electrons, and they have chilled out since reaching very high levels once again yesterday. Charging hazards are non-existent. Here's the F2 ionosphere layer, looking at 6 hours, and it's looking pretty normal. Let's bring up the latest image. And there's the image from 9 o'clock UT, looking pretty average and basic. Here's where stuff is in the solar system. And there's where it'll be in 1 week, approaching another full moon. Here's where stuff is above my head. If you want to create a sky map for yourself, check out in-the-sky.org. Come up here, click on charts, click on all sky charts, and then put in your zip code and stuff, and you'll be able to see where things are above your head. Today's featured star is nothing. Check out lightningmaps.org the next time you hear thunder. Yes, we share our links because we prefer for our viewers to understand the distinction between their posterior and a sinkhole. How about some weatherunderground.com? Here's the U.S. Doppler radar animation, noting that it's still snowing in Montana. There's also a wintry mix, snowing in Idaho, snowing in Wyoming, even a little bit of snow in the Dakotas there. Welcome to the first week in October. There are places with 4 feet of snow in Montana right now. And let's look at the U.S. water vapor map, where you can see the massive anticyclonic rotation that I was telling you about. There are a lot of protons in this area, folks. A lot of protons. You see that area? That is a massive anticyclone. It's so massive that it's actually controlling the flow of this atmospheric river here. That is an anticyclone at its finest. Let's zoom in at this convergence zone over central Illinois. As the atmosphere is a semiconductor, folks. The atmosphere is the semiconductor in between the Earth's magnet and the Sun's magnet. As current flows through the planet, and indeed your head, these are the areas where there are massive pressure gradients. Also keep in mind, dry massive air is not only more susceptible to electric charge change potentials, it's also more massive, and it runs the show. I know people think that moisture runs the show. It's not the way it works, folks. Because of the molar weight, the molar mass, I'll say, of nitrogen versus H2O, hot, humid air is always less dense than dry, cold air. That's why a hot air balloon floats, folks. Next, we'll look at the jet streams of the Western world. Look at the bends in the southern jet down there. There are 2 different spots where there's a 180-degree turn over a distance of about 500 miles there. Massive bends in the jet stream, affecting things like plane flights. We've also got jet stream flow in the absolute wrong direction in various places, and you can note that anticyclone over the U.S. Let's look at the eastern jets. And there's the jet streams of the eastern world. Huge bends in the southern jet streams once again. You're going to have a weird summer down south, folks. Get ready for it. And it's going to be a long, cold winter in the north. And we've graduated to the That Is Censored and That Is a Sinkhole, censored versus sinkhole section, where we talk about whatever we want. We didn't do it yesterday because we were producing a video with Gareth, the operator of See the Pattern, another YouTube channel. Were you aware that Kanye West he's stated he's only going to do gospel music from now on? He hasn't officially released his newest work, Jesus is King, but he's already making waves about the future of his musical direction. Now, Norah Jones did the same thing. When Norah Jones won about 6 Grammys from her first album, she didn't exactly do what the record label preferred. She produced a gospel album. And for that, we thank you, Norah Jones. Please leave a comment, Norah Jones, if you're watching the video. Now, we covered this story last week about this idiot who's wanted in a daytime shootout. Now, nobody was injured in the creation of this idiotic video. It looks like a drug deal gone wrong to me. Check out this video from the City of Chester Police Department where 2 morons engage in a gunfight right outside of a Pennsylvania school. You can see they're firing through the truck. They're not exhibiting particularly good marksmanship, as neither was shot in this idiotic incident. Anyway, our suspect, this genius right here, Hanif Payne, was captured at a Red Roof Inn in Jersey. So I just wanted to talk about a follow-up to a story there. It's a happy ending as one more idiot's off the street. The other guy was not identified, and I'm sure Hanif will not identify him. Were you aware of, do you ever go outside and you look at your country and you go, this isn't America? New York City has created fines for the use of the term illegal alien and various other perfectly lawful activities. We'll see if this gets a constitutional argument in court immediately. I suppose there are probably people lining up to try to get fined so they can go battle the New York City Commission on Human Rights on this insane law. Now, the term illegal immigrant the term illegal alien is actually used in U.S. legal documents. So I don't know how they're going to ban the use of a term that exists in U.S. legal code, but this will be one to keep an eye on throughout the coming weeks and months as, let's see, those are only examples. Anyway, it's a new legal enforcement guidance that will help ensure that no New Yorker is discriminated against based on their immigration status or national origin. I'm just speechless. Please leave a comment if you have an opinion on that. Were you aware that the U.S. manufacturing has reached the lowest level since the last solar minimum in 2009? Yeah, that's right. The lowest levels in 10 years. This Reuters article also linked below the video. So after you become our next patron, go click on that and read about how global shares slip to 1 month low after U.S. manufacturing stock shock. Now, of course, Trump has said, hey, everybody, consider alternatives to using China. You know, because we buy a lot of stuff from China. Now, we've got a trade deficit with our local grocery store also, because trade deficits are not necessarily a problem if you are getting a good price for the things that you're buying. Anyway, good luck finding alternatives for Chinese goods. When the president says, hey, go find alternatives to Chinese goods, they don't just magically appear, and factories do not just magically appear in the U.S. to build those things. Moving on to some cosmology stuff. Check out this Spitzer image. This area located in the constellation Aquia, the Eagle, is full of bow shocks, bubbles, and star-forming regions. A bunch of massive stars here. Pretty interesting area. Let's take a look at that image. There are some close-ups. And we see all kinds of plumes and Z-field jets and bow shocks and all kinds of interesting stuff happening there. Links to this article also below the video to stimulate your mind. And this is from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I think they've got an image with a bunch of squares on it showing where the bow shocks are. Anyway, check out the article. Another interesting piece of cosmology. Now, this is a theory that I've had for years. Alien lurkers could be covertly watching us from space, physicist says. They could be hiding on near-Earth objects. For instance, there are certain asteroids that have very odd orbits that follow the Earth, but don't follow the rest of the asteroid belt orbits. And there are some unidentifiable objects that orbit the Earth, such as the Black Knight object. I'm sure many of our viewers are familiar with that. Personally, if I showed up in our solar system from a different solar system, I wouldn't allow the humans to see me. I would hide, and I would covertly surveil the Earth. Please leave a comment if you have an opinion on what you would do if you were an extra solar systemic or perhaps an extra galactic visitor to our solar system. And please leave a comment if you're viewing from a different solar system, multiverse, plane of existence, universe, star system, galaxy, etc. We want to know all about what you think about cosmology. Check out some of my adventures yesterday by following me on Instagram. Here's what went on.
right, Fridges, this one's for you.
It's going to get exciting. Don't worry, folks. There's going to be an injury. And while it looks like I crash in this turn, I don't really crash in this turn. I crash on some single track later. And I smack my knee again.
Don't be the guy that does that to his knee and then does that to his bike.
And then I threw my bike in the bushes, and I wasn't pleased. Anyway, I rode back, and I think it's not. I think I'm just fine. Anyway, we're also on other social media, as we've just stated. The Instagram account is going to show you some behind-the-scenes footage and stuff like that. We're also on Facebook. We don't interact too much there, as Facebook is a quagmire of horrifically written software. It's free to waste your time and spy on you. We're also on Gab, gab.com/smAsho. We're on Minds, minds.com/smAsho. And if you enjoy the content, please press like and subscribe on YouTube. Press the notification bell and perhaps watch the premieres with us, as we tend to watch these things live lately. We're not recording them live. We would prefer to live stream, but that's a bit of a hassle. And let's talk about what we were up to yesterday. We released one yesterday afternoon where we were talking to Gareth from the channel See the Pattern. And let's play a clip to tease. I don't know what it'll be. It's basically random. Z field, and it could be 1,200 light years away.
How does that fit in where it is in terms of the movement of galaxies?
Anyway, tune in, check it out, and also please subscribe to See the Pattern. Some of the best cosmology videos you will find on YouTube, some of the best videos, period, and some fantastic animations. Thanks again, Gareth. Here's the whiteboard image that we were viewing. This is what I was drawing for him. We didn't actually feature this on yesterday's video, where I took an image of the Gong 2. Let's see, that's the line of sight B field plot, I believe, or the coronal hole field plot. And I just drew in the Z field, the sun's north Z field here, because that was a major component of our conversation. We also talked about Cygnus A, the massive radio galaxy located about 530 million light years away, and the second strongest radio source in the entire sky, second only to our local yellow dwarf known as the Sun. We also talked a lot about Deneb, a seemingly crucial star in our local galactic neighborhood, even though it's between 1,200 and 4,000 light years away. This is what's going on. Deneb is a Wolf-Rayet star, which is a giant. It's a blue supergiant, which would be about the size of Mars's orbit if it were in our solar system, and it's believed to be orbited by a neutron star, is what classical astronomers would call it. We'll just call it a massive radio source. And you see the red jet there, that's a jet directed away from us, and the blue jet is a jet directed toward us. Does that look like a swan? It looks a little bit like a swan in flight, doesn't it? Let's just assume that that's just a coincidence. Anyway, Cygnus X3, aka Deneb, part of the Summer Triangle, the tail of the swan, is an important star, and we're going to be studying it in great depth, looking for certain types of signals there. So look for that to be coming out in the future. We're going to be doing a lot of research and perhaps getting even some more new data on Cygnus X3, otherwise known as Deneb. Global warming update. There's no warming. This Zero Hedge article is basically about Tony Heller's videos, which we feature regularly on this channel. I like this graph especially here. This is a great one. So we're looking at sea level rise here, and we're expected to believe that this sea level rise here between 20,000 and 14,000 years ago was natural. That this Younger Dryas event over here was natural, and that this was natural, and this is all natural here, and that this tiny little bit of sea level rise up here is man-made. Now, basically what the article is about the way Tony Heller just debunks and debunks and debunks the nonsense. So please subscribe to Tony Heller's YouTube page. He's an actual engineer. He's actually been involved in writing climate models And for instance, one of the things you'll notice is that the statistics always start in 1979, when sea ice was at a historically high level. And let's just move on and not even talk about this anymore. But let's thank the SMASH team for viewing the videos. And let's instruct everybody, including the SMASH team, our patrons and everybody else, to stay tuned for one, count 'em, bonus feature. It's not going to be talking about solar polar field strength, although there is a graph of the solar polar field strength. It's not going to be about our smAsho mission, although links to that are also in the description. It's not even going to be about the Neil Gorell Swift Observatory Swift/Bat Hard X-ray Transient Monitor, although there are links to that below the video also. It's not even going to be the view from Stereo A's coronagraph, because there are no coronal mass ejections coming at the Earth at this time. It's going to be 8 hours and 45 minutes of our local yellow dwarf at 171 angstroms. Sunspot 2749 in all its magnetic glooping glory. It's not a magnetic glooping lorry. That would be a weird type of truck. Anyway, that's it. We are out of here. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Remember, when you're staring at the sun, don't drink. And if you drink, stare at the sun anyway. Just don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back and the atherosclerosis absent from your veins.